What we are talking about here is cell-free DNA testing. Tell us how it works.
It's a pleasure to be here. The way it works is we've taken statistical techniques that we use in communication systems, like what we put in cell phones and what we put in spaceships, and we've applied those technologies to analyze tiny amounts of DNA that one can see in the plasma, sometimes levels of DNA as low as a single molecule. And the goal is to detect genetic diseases like Down syndrome and breast cancer more accurately and more easily and earlier, either in the pregnancy or in the progression of the cancer, so that we can make better healthcare decisions and improve the outcomes. In detecting cancers earlier, we can actually improve lifespans.
Sir, do the majority of health plans cover this type of testing?
In the prenatal space, we have a series of tests, and so when you say this type of testing, I'll break it down into a set of tests that we offer.
Sure.
We offer analysis of products of conception to help women understand why they have miscarriages. That happens in about 10 to 20% of pregnancies. We offer high-throughput carrier screening, where you can screen for inherited genetic conditions like cystic fibrosis. Both of those are very well covered by insurance. We also offer the Panorama non-invasive prenatal test. Now, this is a test that has changed the way one manages pregnancies all over the world. Previously, a woman would have to choose between a screening test which was very poor performance, very limited coverage. For example, they'd miss about 1 in 7 cases of Down syndrome, or an invasive test like an amniocentesis, where they'd stick a needle in the woman's belly, and that had a risk to the pregnancy. So with the Panorama test, you can just do a blood draw from a needle stick in the woman's arm 9 weeks into the pregnancy and detect all sorts of chromosomal problems. That is covered by insurance predominantly in women who are older than 35. We are expecting now that many women who are younger than 35 also want access to that kind of testing.
Right.
And we're expecting that insurance reimbursement will be coming over time.
Dr. Rabinowitz, how much does this technology reduce the rate of false positive results?
Oh, substantially. So if you look at the existing screening modalities which use hormone markers and ultrasound, you've got a false positive rate, and we're talking about the prenatal space here, of about 5%. With these tests that look at cell-free DNA, like the Panorama test, you've got a false positive rate which is well below 1%. In many cases, it's well below 0.1%. So you are detecting many things with much more accuracy.
Sir, Natera's revenue growth is decelerating. The company is showing large losses. And given those two factors, talk to me about the timing of the IPO, how you'll go about turning things around.
Well, I don't think it's a question of turning things around. We're making some substantial bets for future growth. The growth of the company has been strong and ongoing. We are making substantial bets in two areas. The first is we made a large bet in low-risk testing for the prenatal space, which is about 80% of the market. These women who are below the age of 35, most of whom really want the Panorama test, and other tests that we offer alongside that, such as microdeletions testing and carrier testing. The Panorama test for the low-risk population is not generally reimbursed. So we're running a lot of samples now without reimbursement. We try to collect from the patients, but we are making a major bet there running those samples without reimbursement. Besides that, we're spending a lot of research on cancer. So these cancer tests will be well reimbursed when we offer them, to the extent that most of those tests are offered after the detection of a mass or post-diagnosis of cancer, in which case they'll be billed with the next-gen sequencing codes. So there's a lot of research going into various cancer trials, and that's an investment in the future. So I think that the technology is going to grow and the market's going to continue to grow.
Well, sir, speaking of investments, you have attracted a lot of attention from some of Silicon Valley's hottest funds. How are you positioning the company?
Well, we've got wonderful investors. You know, at the early stages, I think we were backed by Silicon Valley's best, like Sequoia Capital. And in the later stages, we brought in some of the top late-stage healthcare investors. So I think we're positioning the company to be a combination of informatics and healthcare technologies. The idea in the long term is we believe that sequencing is going to be appearing in every nook of the world, and our goal is to piggyback on the emergence of sequencing with these new tests that can catch diseases earlier and substantially improve the quality of life around the world.
Right.
So we enable tests in the cloud where labs all over the world, we've got more than 70 lab partners around the world, including some of the top labs in every continent. They will be enabled to run the samples themselves. We pull the data off the sequencer using the cloud model, crunch the data and generate the result. And that's how we really scale worldwide, more like an IT company than a traditional healthcare lab.
Sir, we have about 30 seconds left. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, does your industry face any ethical challenges, particularly as relates to the science?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I would say that there are ethical challenges. There are many things that we can test in theory that we don't test. For example, we do pre-implantation genetic diagnosis where we can analyze embryos before implantation. We just focus on serious disease conditions. For some of the screening that we do, people will decide to react differently to those results, but our goal is to give them the information as accurately and as early as possible so that they can make the best decisions based on their family and their doctor.